All right. So, Brian Robinson Jr., what does making him available for trade? What does that mean in terms of how they are thinking about him and the running back situation? Because I think there's more than just one answer. I know what the answer will be for the majority of you. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're wrong because I don't know what the answer is for sure. I have a hunch on what the answer is, but I don't know what it is for sure. But I think the answer from most of you will be, well, old Bill, Chikori Krosky Merritt, has been so impressive to them. They've got the answer. They were looking for an answer in the offseason. They didn't go free agency. They could have gone Najee Harris. They could have gone Rico Dowdle. They could have gone Raheem Mostert. They didn't take a running back early in the draft. I thought all offseason leading up to the draft, because I talked about this when the season ended, that I thought Brian Robinson Jr. would be a casualty. I did not think that there would be a Brian Robinson Jr. on the roster in 2025, but I changed my mind when they didn't pick a running back in the first, on night 2 or early day 3, which is what I thought they would do. I thought they were going to answer that question with a draft pick from what was a loaded running back draft, either on night 2 or early day 3. They didn't do that. They waited until the 7th round to take the running back, and I immediately changed my mind. I got off Brian Robinson Jr. not being on the roster and either being cut or an attempt to trade him because I didn't think that they had addressed the need. Because 7th round picks don't make contributions in the NFL. I've mentioned this many times before. You are looking for a needle in a haystack, similar to Sam Howell when they selected him in the 5th round, and everybody thought that was the answer. It's a needle in a haystack. 1 7th round running back over the last 10 years has made an impact. Isaiah Pacheco in Kansas City. Every other one, either not in the league or just a special teamer or way down the list in terms of contributors. So maybe they found the needle in a haystack, and maybe only they know. Look, we can observe, whether it is training camp practices, joint practice, the one that they had with the Patriots, the other one this week canceled with the Ravens, preseason opportunities. I mean, he was impressive against the Patriots, but he didn't put on a performance. Like, as an example, the guy that I love, Damian Martinez, the back that got drafted by Seattle, the performance he put on the other night in a preseason game. It's not like you have, 10 carries for 50 yards to kind of hang your hat on. It was 7 for 24. Now, I did like some of the vision and some of the cuts, and one big play did get called back by penalty. But they know, if that's the reason Brian Robinson Jr. is available via trade. If that's the reason, the coaches know. Kingsbury and Quinn and Peters, everybody can watch this. They've got a running backs coach in Anthony Lynn who knows, is this guy it or isn't he it? Who cares where we took him? We liked him, we took him, and we were right about him. Is that what they're thinking? Is that the answer? I think that's the answer many of you will have, is that they've got their first down back in Krosky Merritt. But there are other answers here. There is the answer of, look, with Jaden at quarterback, all of our backs will benefit. Eckler was probably, when healthy, our most overall impactful back. Chris Rodriguez had some moments last year as a runner, perhaps better, more consistent moments than even Brian Robinson Jr. And damn, do we love Jeremy McNichols. We love McNichols, not just as a special teamer. We like him as a back. Who knows? Maybe McNichols is the Jeremy Reeves offensive equivalent. Maybe they're seeing a bigger role for McNichols in the same way that I think they are seeing a bigger role for Jeremy Reeves on defense, not just a special teamer. Maybe they look at it and say, look, the committee, if it's not just Krosky Merritt, if they're not just sitting back saying, oh, we got a guy that has the vision, has the explosiveness. He's just flat out better than Brian Robinson Jr. Maybe they don't view him as a star, but they just view him as better than Brian Robinson Jr., cheaper than Brian Robinson Jr., a guy that's going to be on the roster in 2026 where Brian Robinson Jr. isn't, so why not try to move him? Maybe that's the answer. Maybe it's a by committee. Again, Krosky Merritt, McNichols, Rodriguez, Debo being involved, Eckler being involved, if he's healthy, in some first down situations. Maybe it is either McNichols or Rodriguez. They're both just as good as Brian Robinson Jr. Neither is under contract next year, but although is Rodriguez, I forget what Rodriguez's situation is. I don't think they have a running back other than Krosky Merritt that's under contract after this year. What is it that they are thinking? 301-230-0980. You can inject what you hope they're thinking and whether or not you think this is a good idea or not. My hunch is this. I think that, and it's the reason that I thought, after the loss to Philadelphia, when we started to talk about the offseason, and I wrote down, and I've kept these notes, I've talked about what window number one, and it wasn't going to be the only window with Jaden, but window number one was Jaden's rookie deal and how they were going to address that in 2025. And I wrote six things, actually. Number one was culture continuation. They have to bring back guys like Wagner, Ertz, and even Mariota. I also wrote down Chin. They got rid of Chin. But I'm like, they have to keep that culture. These were free agents, remember. The culture continuation continues when you bring back culture guys like Wagner, Ertz, Mariota, right? Terry already under contract, so I didn't need to write that one down. Plus, I had the assumption that they would sign Terry to a long-term deal. Number two was defense. And I wrote down, this was the Achilles heel and the reason the season ended one game short of the Super Bowl. Specifically, they need an edge-setting defensive end that can stop the run but can also rush the passer. We were looking for those guys in the first round of the draft. Number three for me, I wrote down, figure out corner and Lattimore. If there's a concern about him, culture fit-wise, playing-wise, you have to address corner. Don't ever fear cutting your losses before they lead to more losses. Well, Lattimore's still here, but they did take a corner early in this draft. They did. 4 for me on the 6 things that I thought they needed to address in the offseason. O-line, they need, more likely than not, another left tackle. They addressed that in the draft, and they also addressed that in free agent with a trade for Laramie Tunsil. So Tunsil was really that answer. Connerly obviously going to start on the other side, but could be your future left tackle. Number 5 was another number 2 wide receiver and another running back to replace Brian Robinson Jr. as the primary first down back. They didn't necessarily do either of those things. And then I wrote down kicker. They need a new kicker. They did address that. So again, I think what they've come to the conclusion on as it relates to this is they knew they had an issue at running back. They wanted to fix running back. It's very possible that they had running backs in mind in the draft earlier than Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, but they took the highest rated players on their board. They took, instead of, in the 4th round, who were the running backs that went in the 4th round? I got to pull it up, actually. But Jalen Lane was their highest rated player. Instead of a running back in the 6th round, they took Kane Medrano in the 6th round. Instead of Ja'Cory, and then Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt ended up being the best running back in the 7th round. The running backs that went well in advance. I mean, taking away the Genties, the Hamptons, and the Hendersons, because we thought there was a chance Henderson could be that guy. And even taking away the Judkins and the Caleb Johnsons. On fourth round, it started with Tootin from Virginia Tech, Scadaboo, Trevor Etienne. I loved Etienne before this draft. Marks, I liked Hunter from Auburn. He went in the fourth round. Sampson, Jordan James, Jaden Blue went in the fifth. DJ Giddens in the fifth. And then in the sixth, it was Gordon and then Devin Neal. Loved Devin Neal in this draft. Taj Brooks went in the sixth, loved him. And then in the seventh, before Krosky Merritt, Damian Martinez went to Seattle. He was my favorite of the sort of night two or day three picks. He went later than we thought. I think later than a lot of people thought. And then Krosky Merritt, after four more guys in the seventh round, was picked. So maybe they had others in mind, but they had Jalen Lane and Cadron and Medrano rated ahead of the backs who were on the board at that point. And they went with, at their last opportunity, a back that was the highest rated on the board. And they hoped. And now that they've had a chance to see him, maybe they feel like, hey, we got that right. My hunch is they like him a lot. They feel like, as coaches, and they see it a lot more than we do at this point in the year, clearly, this is a guy that they think might be able to work out. But the lack of experience, are you really going to line him up against the Giants? It's one of the positions you can do it. You can do it at running back. You know, you can put a seventh rounder, a fifth rounder out there day one. If they're, mature enough to handle the whole thing, which includes, obviously, pass protection. Maybe that's it. My hunch, though, is this is a situation in which they think Krosky Merritt is not only better, but of more value than Brian Robinson Jr. So is Jeremy McNichols, in particular McNichols. I think they like him in the running game. He's very intelligent. He's obviously a factor on special teams. And with Debo and potentially even Rodriguez, I think they feel like they've got an opportunity by committee to address this until they realize, hopefully, that Krosky Merritt is a lead back. That's what I think they're thinking, all of whom are much less expensive, with the exception of Debo, of course, but Debo's a weapon. I'm not saying Debo's going to take over Brian Robinson's carries. I'm saying, as part of a committee, he's averaged 40 to 50 carries a year in the league with the 49ers, that it's a by committee, and they think all of those guys, as standalones, as are every bit of Brian Robinson Jr. and more valuable with respect to not only the current cap situation, but the future, where Brian Robinson Jr. isn't going to be around. And now they can get something back for B-Rob. Not a lot, but a sixth rounder did produce Alfred Morris in 2012. So if they got back a sixth rounder for Brian Robinson Jr., remember, it's very possible nobody's interested in Brian Robinson Jr. We always feel like everybody should be interested in our guys. It's not always the case. It's possible that they end up releasing him. I think tonight will be interesting because Krosky Merritt with the shoulder, and why would you, if you are convinced that you got a guy that's every bit of, Brian Robinson Jr. or better, even if you don't think he's a star, why would you even risk him tonight? So I don't want to see him tonight, because that would be an indication that they still need to see more. And I hope that they don't need to see more at this point. Brian Robinson Jr., third round pick 2022. So much for that trade back, chess checkers, Rivera and company against the Saints, where the Saints took Olave. Washington passed on a guy that would have been a star for them in Kyle Hamilton. Should have taken Kyle Hamilton at 11. They traded back. In the trade back, I didn't mind Jahan Dotson. I thought Dotson had a chance to be a good receiver. Did you see the Eagles traded for Mechie? Mechie certainly comfortable with Jalen Hurts. A lot of Bama guys in Philadelphia when you start to add them up. That could spell the end for Jahan Dotson in Philadelphia. But Dotson, Brian Robinson Jr., Sam Howell, and Cole Turner. That's why you can never judge a draft or a draft day trade in the moment or even in the first year. You just can't do it. You've got to wait 3 years. It's been 3 years. That was a terrible trade for Washington, a horrendous trade for Washington. They missed out on Kyle Hamilton, a Pro Bowler, future, all pro, consistent Pro Bowler at safety. Or they could have taken Olave, and Olave would have been a hell of a receiver. He's had some injury issues here and there, but that's why, most will caution on draft day analysis, or even within the first year, a draft day analysis, as you just have to wait. Because that trade, a lot of our fans thought this was chess over checkers. This was fleecing of Philadelphia, of New Orleans. This was super smart. They got a starting running back, a starting quarterback for the future, and a starting, stretch the field wide receiver. And they didn't get any of those things. And New Orleans got Chris Olave. All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Brian Robinson Jr., according to many reports, including our own Ben Standig, is, according to his sources, available for trade. What is the thinking among Washington brass? What are you thinking about this trade? I think they just have wanted to see Brian Robinson Jr. replaced. I didn't think they did enough to replace him in the moment through the draft. I certainly was an advocate of signing a Chubb or a J.K. Dobbins for, not a lot of money, very much an on-the-come deal, although they got a little bit more money than just on the come from the two teams they signed with. But I think they've wanted to replace him since the season ended. And I think they feel now they've seen enough of Bill, and they know everybody else, that they feel like they can do it by committee early, with the expectation of being able to fill that spot with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, a.k.a. Bill Krosky-Merritt, at some point down the road. What do you think they're thinking? Not to mention the fact that because he's not going to be under contract next year, try to get something, all the while saving $3.4 million in not only cash outlay, but clearing it from your books for the 2025 cap as well, which, may help them in the Terry deal, which hasn't happened.